A maritime flag is a flag designated for use on ships, boats, and other watercraft. Naval flags are considered important at sea, and the rules and regulations for the flying of flags are strictly enforced. The flag flown is related to the country of registration, so much so that the word flag is often used symbolically as a synonym for country of registration. Types of flag. Ensigns. Ensigns are usually required to be flown when entering and leaving harbor, when sailing through foreign waters, and when the ship is signaled to disobey a warship. Warships usually fly their ensigns between the morning colors ceremony and sunset when moored or at anchor, at all times when underway, and at all times when engaged in battle. The battle ensign. When engaged in battle, a warship often flies multiple battle ensigns. This tradition dates from the era of sailing vessels. Tradition dictated that if a ship lowered its ensign, it was deemed to have surrendered. Masts were targets of gunfire, and the second and subsequent ensigns were flown in order to keep the ensign flying even after a mast hit. Jacks. Jacks are additional national flags flown by warships at the head of the ship. These are usually flown while not underway and when the ship is dressed on special occasions. Jacks in the Royal Navy must be run up when the first line is ashore when coming alongside. Distinguishing marks. On the 16th of January 1899, commissioned ships of the United States Coast and Geodetic Survey were authorized to fly their own flag to distinguish them from ships of the United States Navy, with which they shared a common ensign. Although they continued to fly the same ensign as U.S. Navy ships, ships of the survey flew the Coast and Geodetic Survey flag as a distinguishing mark until the newly created National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration took over control of the survey's ships in 1970. Since then, commissioned ships of NOAA, which also fly the same national ensign as U.S. Navy ships, have flown the flag of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration as a distinguishing mark. Similarly, all ships of the United States Lighthouse Service flew the U.S. Lighthouse Service flag until the service merged into the United States Coast Guard on 1 July 1939, and ships of the United States Bureau of Fisheries flew to the Bureau of Fisheries flag until the Bureau was merged into the United States Fish and Wildlife Service on 30 June 1940. Rank flags. The rank flag, a distinguishing flag, is the flag flown by a superior officer on his flagship or headquarters. The origins of this are from the era before radiotelegraphy and radiotelephony, when orders were given by flag signals. The flag denotes the ship, which must be watched for signals designating orders. Such flags are also flown when leaders of the government are aboard Navy ships, showing the ship to hold the headquarters of highest level of authority for the armed forces. Today, with the progress in communications, this flag indicates the obligation of the other naval vessels to pay the relevant honors according to nautical etiquette. In a group of naval ships all commanded by superior officers, only the commander of the group or the officer of the highest rank can fly his flag. In the Royal Navy, admirals fly rectangular rank flags. An admiral of the fleet flies a Union flag, while an admiral flies the St. George's Cross. The flags of vice admirals and rear admirals have 1 and 2 or additional red balls respectively. Commodores fly a broad pennant, which is a short swallow-tailed pennant based on the St. George's Cross, with a red ball at the canton. In the United States Navy, as well as in some other countries, admirals fly rectangular flags with stars according to rank. Line officer flags are blue with white stars, while staff officer flags are white with blue stars. In the Hellenic Navy, admirals fly blue square flags bearing a white cross with 4 6-point stars. stars. Vice admirals fly the same flag but with 3 stars, rear admirals 2 stars, and commodores 1 star. Captains, when commanding a flotilla or squadron, fly a burgee with the colors of Hellenic Navy Jack. When a rank flag is flown, the commissioning pennant is displaced downward. Pennants. The pennant, historically called a pennon, is a long, narrow flag, conveying different meanings depending on its design and use. Examples: a commissioning pennant, or masthead, which a warship flies from its masthead and indicates the commission of the captain of the ship. In the Royal Navy, the commissioning pennant is a small St. George's cross with a long tapering plain white fly. In the United States Navy, it is red above white with 7 white stars in the blue hoist. The commissioning pennant may be displaced by various rank flags, namely the flags or pennants of admirals or commodores, and the personal flags of heads of state and members of royal families. In former centuries, masthead pennants were of a length similar to that of the ships that wore them, but nowadays very long pennants stand only to be seen when a ship is paying off. A church pennant, as used by the Royal Navy, Royal Netherlands Navy and Commonwealth navies, is a broad pennant flown on ships and at establishments during religious services, and has the George Cross and Dutch flag incorporated, chosen after the English-Dutch Wars, where both sides stopped for church on a Sunday. A senior officer present to float pennant using the NATO signal flag for starboard is green on the hoist and fly with a white field between. A gin pennant means that the wardroom is inviting officers from ships in company to drinks. The origins of the gin pennant are uncertain, but it seems to have been used since the 1940s and probably earlier. Originally it was a small green triangular pennant measuring approximately 18 by 9 inches, defaced with a white wine glass. Nowadays the gin pennant is a starboard pennant defaced with a wine cocktail glass. Its color, size and position when hoisted were all significant, as the aim was for the pennant to be as inconspicuous as possible, thereby having fewer ships sight it and subsequently accept the invitation for drinks. The gin pennant is still in regular use by Commonwealth navies, such as the Royal Australian Navy. Within the RAN it is common practice, whilst in port, for junior officers of one ship to attempt to raise the gin pennant on the halyard of another ship, thereby forcing the ship to put on free drinks for the officers of the ship that managed to raise the pennant. If, however, the junior officers are caught raising the pennant, then it is the ship that must put on free drinks within the wardroom. Usually this practice is restricted to Commonwealth navies. However, prior to increased force protection, RAN officers have successfully raised the gin pennant on a number of units in the USN. House flag merchant ships often fly a flag identifying which company owns the vessel. This was formerly flown from the main mast but is now usually flown from the jackstar. Private signals are custom-designed flags used to symbolize and identify the owner of a boat. Yacht club burgee members belonging to a yacht club or sailing organization may fly the club's unique burgee both while underway and at anchor. Sailing vessels may fly the burgee from the main masthead or from a lanyard under the starboard spreader on the mast. Powerboats fly the burgee off a short staff on the bow. Unit citations. Warships of various navies may be awarded a unit citation, for which a burgee is flown when in port. Ships of the United States Navy. Presidential Unit Citation, yellow with blue stripe on top and red stripe at the bottom. Navy Meritorious Unit Commendation, green with 4 yellow stripes divided by 2 blue and 1 red stripes at the center. Navy Unit Commendation, symmetrical coloring from the center, green, red, yellow, blue. Ships of the Royal Australian Navy may have unit citation for gallantry, burgee with narrow white band surrounding green fields surmounted by a silver star. Meritorious unit citation, design as above with yellow field. Signal flags. There is a system of international maritime signal flags for each letter of the alphabet, and pennants for the numerals. Each flag has an additional meaning when flown individually, and they take other meanings in certain combinations. Courtesy flag. A courtesy flag is flown by a visiting ship in foreign waters as a token of respect. It is often a small national maritime flag of the host country, although there are countries where the national, rather than the maritime flag is correct. The flag is customarily worn at the foremast head of multi-masted vessels, the dockside yardarm, a crosstree of the mast of single-masted vessels, while the house flag would be outboard. It may be flown from the jackstaff of vessels without masts. Flag etiquette. The position of honor on a ship is the quarterdeck at the stern of the ship, and thus ensigns are traditionally flown either from an ensign staff at the ship's stern, or from a gaff rigged over the stern. The usual rule that no flag should be flown higher than the national flag does not apply on board a ship. A flag flown at the stern is always in a superior position to a flag flown elsewhere on the ship, even if the latter is higher up. The priority of hoisting locations depends on the rig of the vessel. With sloops, ketches and schooners, the starboard yard arm spreader of the highest main mast is the second most honored position. Next after the starboard spreader is the port spreader. House flags are usually flown from the main mast truck. When a club burgee is flown, it will normally be hoisted to the truck of the most forward mast. On a sloop, then, not having a foremast, the house flag could be moved to the port spreader if the starboard spreader was in use, and a burgee was being flown. On a ketch, the house flag would be moved to the mizzen. When in port, the ensign should always be flown from the staff at the stern. This is traditional, because in former times the gaff was then lowered along with the mizzen sail. The only ensign ever flown from the starboard spreader a yardarm is that of a nation being visited. This is known as a courtesy hoisting of a courtesy flag. At sea, it used to be that the ensign was flown from the mizzen gaff. When Bermudian sails came into general use, some skippers started to fly the ensign from 2/3 the way up the mainsail leach. Many consider this an affectation with the past. Others have taken to flying the ensign from a backstay. These are not good locations because the flag does not fly out well when hoisted right forward. The Canadian Heritage web page states, another recent custom has been to fly a burgee or a cruising a power squadron flag from the starboard spreader. This custom has arisen because many sailboats today place a racing flag, a wind indicator, at the masthead. Motorboats without masts should always fly the ensign from an ensign staff at the stern. Conventionally, courtesy flags are flown from the jackstaff at the bow. This seems to some landsmen as being a reversal of priorities. However, a boat is steered by the stern, and this gives it pride of place. Nautical etiquette requires that merchant vessels dip their ensigns in salute to passing warships, which acknowledge the salute by dipping their ensigns in return. Contrary to popular belief, the United States Navy does dip the stars and stripes in acknowledgement of salutes rendered to it. Merchant vessels traditionally fly the ensign of the nation in whose territorial waters they are sailing at the starboard yardarm. This is known as a courtesy flag. As for yachts, the flying of two ensigns of two different countries, one above the other, on the same staff is a sign that the vessel concerned has been captured or has surrendered during wartime. The ensign flying in the inferior, or lower, position is that of the country the ship has been captured from. Conversely, the ensign flying in the superior, or upper position, is that of the country that has captured the ship. Dressing overall as a sign of celebration. Ships in harbor may be dressed overall.